Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Crowdsourcing Sustainability Podcast. Today, we have a bonus episode for you. The quick context here is that a very thoughtful, passionate, genuine university student named Monique reached out to me and asked for advice on how to change her university and possibly her province. She lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia right now. And so we set up a 30-minute call and decided to record it in case it'd be useful for any other people or students out there. Hopefully it is. So without further ado, I will roll that conversation and hope y'all like it. Let me know if you want more stuff like this going forward. All right, enjoy.
So I guess first off, I'm very interested in what you're doing and kind of how you got started doing this and what your process was leading to this point. This is more so personally for me because I'm currently studying entrepreneurship, sociology, and sustainability. So I really want to take a career path where I can actually be involved in change. So currently, I'm trying to seek out those opportunities wherever I can and try and make change within the places that I'm interacting with. So even while in university, like to me, I look at a university of a plethora of beautiful, like talented, critical thinking minds, which are trained. But for me, I like based on the conversations that I've been involved in, there seems to be a lack of opportunity for people to come together. So I'm trying to work on that and like move towards higher level multi-solving issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, that definitely resonates deeply with me. So thank you for what you're doing. I guess I can try to quickly share my story, give the short version-ish of where this all started and where we're at now. So climate kind of came on my radar back when I was in college. I was a junior, so I was around 20, 21 years old. And at the time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and had kind of come to the realization that I had to do something meaningful if I could make that work, because I had done a couple internships that I just was not very happy working 40 hours a week at. And so this came across my radar and I just dove right in. I was like, is this real? Is this as serious as it seems? Why isn't everybody talking about this? Why isn't the world taking this seriously or acting on it to the degree that, I thought we should be? And so I picked up a sustainability minor, got a first job out of college, like in clean technology. And fast forward, I essentially in 2017 was kind of came to the point where I was like, okay, I feel like the world isn't moving fast enough. I think I have things that I want to say and try to talk about this in a way that I don't really hear the media talking about it, and try to, just like at the very least start better informing my friends, family, the people around me. So I decided to start a newsletter, and it was very slow going for the first, year and a half plus. And then it kind of took off in like late 2019 and really more so 2020. I started it in like early-ish 2018. But so, I was just trying to share how I think about the problem, explain how far reaching it is, and connect these dots for people and talk about it in a way that will actually make sense to folks. Talk about it really simply and bring some emotion into it, because I think that had been left out largely. So I try to write the way I speak. And yeah, try to, tell the truth of how bad and scary it is, but also give people reasons for hope and try to inspire and empower and give actions that you can take. And for me, it's just been a big learning journey. I've constantly learning and trying to synthesize and disseminate the key points that I've learned along the way to as many other people as possible. But yeah, so now there's like 200,000 people subscribed to the newsletter. We've got a podcast. We've got a team of 3 volunteers currently who are helping me out, and they're amazing. And there's also a Slack community online.
Really?
So yeah, that's got like 500 or so people in it, so way smaller. But what we're focused on now, in addition to the newsletter podcast, is really like, how do we start connecting people?
Mm-hmm.
How do we create this space and opportunity for folks to share best practices and resources with each other, you know, connect over them being in the same profession or in the same location. And that's a really tricky thing to do, but that's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Yeah. And okay, so how did you feel? Because I think I'm kind of facing this. I'm sure you had strong opinions and like a lot of passion in terms of like wanting to take action. I feel like I'm kind of facing this as I go along with my career, that maybe some people are just not in the same headspace as you, and there's a bit of pushback for that. So how did you kind of push on and be persistent while facing those sort of pushbacks?
Yeah, I mean, the way I've come to think about it is, you know, there's always going to be people who don't think this really matters nearly as much as it does. You're going to have some tiny percentage of deniers, a larger percentage of people who are just kind of like indifferent, or, you know, and I try to not really worry about those folks, especially if they're you know, naysaying in any way, trying to shoot holes in what you're trying to do, or being a roadblock in any way. I just try to focus on the people who already care or are concerned or worried. And that proportion of people is the majority now in the US. And if it's that in the US, I imagine it's like that in a lot of other places, because we've had massive amounts of climate denial and whatnot, a lot of propaganda here. And so, yeah, just knowing that the majority care or are concerned, and trying to focus on those people and bring them on board, educate and inspire and empower those folks is where I try to put my attention. And kind of this is key to our theory of change at Crowdsourcing Sustainability. There's this research that says you only need 3.5% of a population to really affect and make systemic change at the highest levels. And, you know, it's a tiny percentage, but it does require the sustained and active participation of that 3.5%. And so we're really just trying to get the people who already like get this. They get that it's really urgent and they want to take action. There's enough people out there who fit that category to like actually make the changes that we need. And so it's about finding them, getting them on the same page, and making action as easy as possible, and helping them find other people to take action with, because that makes it much more, you know, sustainable in the long run.
I do think your idea of having a Slack community, which I'm going to look into, is super amazing. So I mentioned that I'm currently involved in an Actus. So it's a volunteer-run organization. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm the VP of like innovation there. So I'm just trying to bring more learning and figure out how, even within our university, to spread the culture of sustainability. And I'd really like to see And this goes back to me thinking that universities are a plethora of critical thinking minds, which are going to go forth. And it's that domino effect, and having them thinking about and being engaged in sustainability, and also an entrepreneurial mindset, and being able to understand, like, there's one issue of like, there's having knowledge of sustainability, but for me, I see it as being coupled with that entrepreneurship mindset, because it can be a little bit debilitating if you're just learning about sustainability and you don't know how to like solve these issues. And that's a little bit, I used to take sociology. And when I was getting to like the higher levels, and I found like I was just learning about all the world's issues and social issues, but it was actually quite depressing, because I was like, here's everything that's wrong with the world. But then I had no, there, it felt like there was no place for me to actually take action on that. So I feel like training people to be constantly aware of looking for that opportunity of entrepreneurship, and this was in one of your podcasts, is largely important, because it comes from every field as well. So anything in like computer science, like potentially, if you're in computer science and you're aware that the word needs to be, spread more about sustainability, well, if you're someone who comes across, algorithms, or you understand algorithms, potentially you could be entrepreneurial in that regard and look to algorithms and spreading content in terms of, how to be proactive about sustainability, or a more, hopeful sort of insight is needed, then maybe you're looking to push that instead of the narrative of, this desolate narrative of sustainability, and push that a bit more. So yeah, that's super interesting. And I don't know, I'm slowly trying to pick away and network and find people within my university and just create something. So that kind of goes back to, I guess, my questions of like, what are your thoughts on a more like holistic approach in creating these multi-solving crowdsourcing systems? Because I love the idea of crowdsourcing, because, as I mentioned, like I have so many friends who have sustainability ideas, but then they don't have that entrepreneurial mindset, and they don't know how to start business, and they don't know about resources that are offered. So it's looking at the socioeconomic population. Like I'm in Nova Scotia, where we're vastly undereducated. There's not much in terms of diverse thought. People here typically are very complacent, and things are the way they are. So, and even if they learn about this, they'll probably be feeling the same oppression that I used to, and that they can't do anything, or the world's going off the deep end. So how do you reach out to them, understand the psychology, but also their income, and just connect them to the supports that they need?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was long.
It's a massive undertaking. I mean, we really, what the science is telling us is we have to get to zero emissions as soon as possible. And we should be doing that as equitably as possible. So everything being rooted in justice, but it requires a transformation of pretty much everything. And how I currently think about it, the best way I would think of starting in a given place is finding those small number of people who you already know really care about this, and start meeting with them regularly. Have you heard of the book or organization All We Can Save? Okay, so you should definitely check out the book. It's amazing. It's been spun into a project now, and they do what they call circles. And it's kind of, my understanding is it's like a 10-step guided program. They give you resources to kind of hold these sessions and sort of walk people through all the climate emotions and kind of what to do about it, but just creating this space where you meet with people regularly. I think that is a great starting point, not only to find and gather and start strengthening relationships and building a little community amongst the people in your circles who care about this already. And then I think they'll have lots of suggestions in there about what to do. But my 2 cents is it's also really important to start painting the picture of the better future that you want to build. Because like you said, there's so many problems with the world.
Yeah.
And that's all we ever hear about. And it can feel very overwhelming. And it's really, really important to also know what it is we're striving for. Like, we can't just be against climate change. We have to know what we're for, what we're actually moving towards, so we can start taking steps in that direction. And then, once you have that vision, you can start to share that around with other folks. It can be a way to enroll more people into this group that you're building. And, reach out to as many people as you can. Like you said, the more diverse and the more perspectives that you bring in, the better the solutions are that you're going to come up with. And the more the more useful they'll be, the more support you will have for them, because you've gotten a lot of different viewpoints. It's a much broader coalition that you're bringing together. Yeah, and then I think from there, like, once you have the vision, once you're having these in-person or virtual meetings regularly, you're starting to build relationships and community a bit more. Then you can it's important to see, like, okay, where is the place at that we're trying to change? Like, where does it stand now? Have we evaluated or audited the emissions? Do we know the sources of them, where they're coming from? And once you know where you want to go and where you're at, you can start to build that roadmap of, okay, here are the biggest issues, here are the biggest problems that we face right now. And you can start to you can start to prioritize. So say your biggest source of emissions is from heating. Maybe you focus on getting heat pump and electrifying heating and get better insulation for the buildings if you're looking at a university. Or maybe you don't have any renewable energy yet. You can start focusing on your electricity. Maybe it's the food. Maybe it's transportation. Like, whatever it is, you can start to kind of rank these things. Or maybe this is more intangible, but I think possibly the most powerful thing a university could do. And you mentioned this to me in a message, but like actually changing the curriculum to include better climate education, and especially climate solutions, and how to actually problem solve for this, because this is the future that students are going to be living in for the rest of their lives. Like, how do we get to zero emissions? And how do we adapt? How do we ruggedize? How do we problem solve all these different things that humanity is going to be dealing with? And so education is critical for that, because if you're not focusing on those things, you're really not preparing students for the world that they're stepping into.
And then, sorry,
yeah.
I kind of feel like, it's really like, it's just continuing a system if you don't intercept those people, because they're going to go out and they're going to be starting businesses, or they're going to be going into politics, or wherever they're going. And if they're working on the same material and with the same narrative that they've been given, they're not going to have that perception that's going to go out and to make change. So for me, I see, like, universities and the education of students as the key point, because they're going to be going out in the world. They're the ones that are going to be the new leaders of the world. And
Yeah.
it shouldn't be, to me, it shouldn't be left to just, the processes of a few different projects or organizations. You need to understand where to intercept the people, where the best place to introduce a new narrative is, and really get people engaged in problem solving. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, one of the things that's very common in university, and this is a common theme, is how it's set up and engaging students, and how hard it is to change and to get professors or faculty. Like it just takes such a long time that these voices who want this change, unfortunately, they lose traction because the system isn't geared to receive that or to adapt to it. Or you know luckily, it does seem that my university is, and I don't want to speak too much about it on a recording, but it is shifting towards, like, it's being recognized that we're in an environmental crisis and we need to be concentrating on sustainability and entrepreneurship. But it's also, and this is where I retract to the holistic approach of, students are like, we're in Halifax, so we're going through a housing crisis, we're going through food shortages. There's people with, non-supportive families. So it's understanding, what these students are going through and speaking with them and changing systems to be more adaptive to support people for change, rather than just making them wad through a outdated system that is continuously oppressive to people, is how I see it. So I'm trying. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That is awesome, and I think you're spot on. The education aspect is critical because what society has been doing is not working. It's, even without climate change, fossil fuels, the air pollution from fossil fuels is killing close to 9 million people a year. Um, and so we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them. And that requires a narrative shift. Like you said, it requires, honestly, a new, I was going to say worldview, but it's the economic system as well. It's this, the way I think of it is the two of the main stories that have really led to where we are today are the encoding into our system that profit matters more than people and the planet, and this also false or inaccurate idea that people are separate from and better than nature, like thinking that we're apart from nature, but the reality is we are a part of nature.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, the university is a perfect place to start writing some of those narratives, perspectives.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying. I'm just kind of going back to the questions here. I'm just going to take a look at them. Sorry if you don't have too much more time, but you had spoken before on one of your podcasts in terms of the siloing, and I like, something that I struggle with is just getting all these people, like, these, and it comes down to like the authority of, I have these thoughts and these ideas, but it's commonplace where, and this goes to anyone who's not in a position in the hierarchy position, they lack authority to even talk about these ideas with certain people. In a system that's so siloed, how do you deal with that? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answers. I can take a whack at it. I would say, building on what I mentioned earlier, if you go through that process of gaining support and building relationships with the people who are ready for it, whatever levels they're at, wherever they're coming from, you can then try to, get meetings with people in leadership and present your proposals. Like if you go to someone and just say the problems, they're you might get them to work on it. But if you show up and you're like, this is not okay, this is not working well, we can do better, and then you also present what to do about it, you might get a little bit further with them. Also presenting, like I said, the solutions and showing how it's a win-win. Okay. Saying how, like, all the benefits that are going to come from doing things differently, and how much money you'll save over the long term, how much less pollution, air pollution there will be on campus, and that sort of stuff, and really spelling out, what, like I said, painting that picture for them, sharing that vision, like what is this going to look like when it's all said and done? How much better is it going to be for everyone involved? And you can even say, like, make the business case for the school. Like, if you are truly sustainable and the air quality is better on campus, and you are actively taking steps to help build the future that students want to live in, you're going to be a much more attractive institution for young people who overwhelmingly care about this and see it as a increasingly, I was going to say life or death, and it is that for a lot of people. It sounds extreme, but
yeah, and not just to me. I look at it like on campus is one thing, but where there's great minds, like no matter how far away people are, because like there's mass droughts, and we're here in more privileged area of having access to that education and having the ability to have that sort of insight, like being able to create opportunity to look at solving those opportunities as well. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak with me. This was absolutely amazing. How might I connect to the Slack community?
Yeah, if you sign up for the email newsletter, the great majority of people who read my stuff are on LinkedIn. At the bottom of every LinkedIn newsletter, there's a little, you can sign up for the email newsletter link. And if you do that, you will get an invite to the Slack. You could also find it on the website in the community section. But I would go with the newsletter route, because there's also some other stuff that you get for some other benefits going that way.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again. And it was so great meeting with you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you for all the great questions and doing what you're doing. I'm very appreciative.
Oh, no, thank you as well for doing what you're doing as well. So it's awesome. And I'm glad I found you on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Right. Well, take care, and we should stay in touch, Monique.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.